Okay, hi everybody. If you are watching this video, it is going to be a video on what I like to call gambling disorder boot camp. It's going to be a very brief overview of gambling disorder, treatment, referral, and resources. So something that you can watch to get a general idea of what gambling disorder is and how it is treated and what you can do in your own role to facilitate outreach and help and to just kind of get you started. And so in no means am I expecting you to be an expert in gambling disorder by the end of this short video, but it is something to get you started. And of course, please reach out to me at any time if you have any questions or if I can help at any time facilitate you getting the help that you need. So here are the learning objectives that we are going to try and achieve in this video. Learning the DSM-5 criteria for gambling disorder, which will be referred to as GD throughout the rest of the presentation. Warning signs and symptoms of gambling disorder, giving you a look at the prevalence data for the state of Ohio and Lucas County about gambling disorder, learning about some very brief screens and how you might use those to refer to treatment, and then some state and national resources related to gambling disorder that you can give to your clients if they're looking for them. So when we think about gambling, it's best to just start with what is gambling? And in your mind, you might be creating a list already of everything that you can think of that is gambling. And some of these things might come to your mind. Maybe it's the casino, table games like poker or roulette or blackjack. Maybe it's bingo or slot machines or the lottery or scratch-off tickets. While all of those are ways to gamble, there are also some other types of gambling, like gambling in video games or day trading in the stock market, or sports betting, which was recently legalized in Ohio in 2023, that also constitute forms of gambling. So when we're looking at the definition of gambling, it's very simple. It's risking something of value on an event that is determined mostly by chance for a possible win or gain. Something of value does not have to just be money. It is really anything that the person values. It could be jewelry, phones, cars, clothing, food, whatever. Gambling something, risking something on an event that is mostly determined by chance. When we talk about problem gambling, this is when somebody's gambling behaviors start to cause issues with a person's mental and physical health, work, school, activities, relationships, finances, reputation, or spiritual being. And so gambling itself is neither good nor bad. It just is. But the way that a person gambles can become negative. In terms of where you can gamble, it used to just be places that were considered brick and mortar establishments, casinos or racinos. But now, really, you can gamble anywhere. You can play Keno at the bars. You can play lottery while you pump your gas. There are vending machines inside grocery stores to purchase tickets. You can gamble in video games on loot boxes, or you can purchase more coins to try and open a box with an undetermined item that may not be worth anything. You can play bingo at senior centers. You can sports bet. Really, the point is you can gamble from anywhere. You could be gambling and watching this video at the same time. You can gamble in your bed, you can gamble in your bathroom, you can gamble at work, because if you've got your phone with you, you can place a bet. High risk gambling. So when it comes to gambling disorder and looking at if gambling is becoming problematic in somebody's life, here are some of the things that stick out the most. You might notice that someone is using money that is needed for living expenses, and they're gambling with it. So instead of paying their monthly bills, they may be gambling. They may be borrowing or using credit to fund their gambling. This can look like taking out multiple credit cards, cash advances on credit cards, personal loans, any type of borrowing to kind of increase their cash flow so that they can continue the behavior of gambling. Using gambling as a coping strategy to escape unpleasant emotions or difficult situations. Gambling was not designed to be a coping strategy. It was designed to be a form of entertainment, kind of like going to a movie theater and watching the new movie. So when we're using gambling as a coping strategy to avoid difficult things or to escape unpleasant emotions, it's more likely that we're going to gamble in problematic ways, as opposed to if we were gambling as a form of entertainment. If alcohol or other drugs are being used while gambling, that is also a high risk. And if someone starts missing important life events, like coming in late to work or missing school or rescheduling appointments that are really important, or skipping out on friends or family time or holidays to go and gamble, that is something that would stick out to you. And kind of as a blanket statement, if someone is recovering, from another mental health or substance use disorder, gambling can be considered high risk. There is a risk involved with them using gambling as a coping strategy and not using it in a responsible way as a form of entertainment. For the DSM-5 criteria, this is the criteria for gambling disorder. The important thing here to note is that there are 9 criteria, and in a 12-month period, to have a gambling disorder, the individual must exhibit at least 4 or more. Something interesting, if we're comparing diagnoses, if we're looking at gambling disorder as opposed to substance use disorder has, I think, 11 criteria, and you only have to meet 2. Gambling disorder has 9, and you have to meet nearly half of them. And so when we are assessing for gambling disorder, even if someone only meets 4 of the 9 criteria, we also have to remember that that's nearly half of the criteria, which means they are experiencing quite a bit of distress from their gambling behaviors. And so on the next slide, I'm going to kind of shorten these criteria. You can go back and read these criteria through on your own. But the shortened version of this is, in other words, the first criteria is tolerance building. You want to spend more money to achieve your desired effect. So you start gambling either more frequently or with larger wages, so that you can achieve the desired excitement that you're looking for. Withdrawal when trying to control the behavior. This looks like either physical or psychological withdrawal of irritability, anxiety, wanting to go, but maybe not having the funds to gamble, or wanting to set a limit and having a hard time sticking to it. And so that kind of goes into number 3, failed efforts to control the behavior. So if someone says that they are trying to only gamble with $100 and they really want that to work, but they end up, once they're involved in their gambling, going back to get more money to play with, or saying that they only want to gamble on the weekends, but having a hard time sticking to that. That's failed efforts to try and control something. It's becoming more unmanageable for them. Number 4, thinking about gambling often, whether this is planning your next bet, figuring out how to get money to play with, or thinking about gambling as a form of escape itself. Thinking about the fantasy of winning big and changing your life and having all of these things happen if you could just hit the lottery, how your life would improve. Number 5, gambling to relieve unpleasant emotions. This looks like, the coping strategy of wanting to try and feel better. Gambling makes me feel better. It helps me not think about my stressors for a little while. I'm no longer using it as a form of entertainment. I'm using it as a way to cope with life stressors. Number 6, chasing losses. So somewhat unique to gambling disorder, chasing losses. If I have lost money from my gambling, I may want to chase that, and I may think that I deserve to win soon because I've been on a losing streak. Or I may keep a tally in my head of how much I need to win today to make up for what I lost on Monday. So this is what chasing losses look like, trying to win back what you've lost, and then some more as well. Lying about it, this is pretty self-explanatory, either lying about what you're doing, where you're going, how much money you're spending, even lying about your wins and losses to minimize your losses, and sometimes even to minimize or maximize your wins to get the approval from others that you're looking for of, well, I didn't lose that much, but look at how much I won. So lying about the behavior. And number 8 and number 9, jeopardizing important parts of your life to continue the behavior, and financial bailouts in the sense of have you had to rely on other people to help you out financially because the money that you did have you spent on gambling, or you've spent so much money on gambling that you can't pay your bills and you need people to help you. So any type of financial help, we want to explore what that's been like for the individual. Something to consider and to rule out is that these symptoms are not better explained by a manic episode. And here are the specifiers. I'll let you read over those on your own time. And so moving forward from the DSM criteria into some resources for you. So there is a Ohio gambling helpline, and I'm going to go ahead and play the video for you so you can see what some of the advertisements are like for the gambling helpline.
I have been in gambling recovery for 7 years. I didn't think I had a gambling problem, but I opened up a very bad world for myself. I was assigned a trained specialist that dealt in gambling, and that was my first glimmer of hope. So there is help if you call the helpline. It doesn't matter how old or young you are, that helpline is there for you. There's always hope. Make the call.
I'm a gambling addict in recovery. I'm a United States Army veteran. Did 1 tour in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan. I didn't realize I had a gambling problem until I started stealing things, hiding things from friends and family. I told my VA counselor about my gambling problem, and she gave me the gambling helpline. If you feel like you need help, definitely call the gambling helpline. Someone cares.
I had gambled for about 3 years. I had hurt people, and I'm not that kind of person. I didn't want to continue hurting others, and I didn't want to hurt myself. Making that phone call literally saved my life. Gambling addiction is a medical issue, and these trained specialists know how to talk to you in that realm. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Call that helpline. It is going to save your life.
I always thought I could quit if I wanted to, until the day came when I wanted to and I couldn't quit gambling. Gambling recovery has helped me to put my life back together. As gambling gets smaller, life gets bigger. Help is out there. Reach out, pick up that phone, and call the Problem Gambling Helpline of Ohio. They know who to connect you to and what you're going through.
So those are just some videos for you to see the helpline. And now we're going to move into the next objective, which was giving you some data. And this is recent data from 2022, the Ohio Gambling Survey, which I believe is done every 5 years. So this was 2022's findings from the gambling survey. And what I've given you here is data for Lucas County because Zepf Center is in Lucas County, and I thought that would be more applicable. So I've highlighted a lot of important things here. The most important thing here is you want to look at the percentage of the population that potentially may meet criteria as a problem gambler. So when we look at the state of Ohio, about 2.8% of the individuals from the survey would meet the criteria for problem gambler. And below on this slide, you can see that that's an estimated 254,729 individuals among the Ohio adult population of a little over 9 million. Now, when we look at the board percentage from Lucas County, that's 6%, which is double that 2.8. So the prevalence of problem gambling in the Lucas County board area is 6%, which is an estimated 19,575 individuals in the Lucas County adult population of just under 330,000. And so this is problem gambler. Now, when we're looking at these other categories of do not gamble, non-problem gambler, low risk, and moderate risk, you can see that for moderate risk for Lucas County, it's 8.4% and low risk is 10.7%. And what that means is that they may not meet criteria for gambling disorder, but without intervention, they are very well on their way to become a problem gambler. That's kind of where the trajectory is headed. If you've got that moderate risk and that low risk, that's really where our prevention efforts come in to try and mediate those risks from becoming any greater. When we're looking at the survey demographic-wise, we can see that our at-risk or problem gambler category for Lucas County is that women were more likely to be at-risk or problem gamblers. African American race were more likely to be at risk. Hispanic and non-veteran were more likely to be at risk. And when it comes to our age group, interestingly enough, the age group that is most at risk of developing problem gambling is the age group of 18 to 24. And when you think about the emergence of sports betting and gambling and video games, I think that this tracks. The younger crowd is drawn to these types of activities and this type of gambling. So this is a visual way to also interpret the data that I just showed you that I will let you read over on your own time. When we're looking at the survey data and the type of gambling, the two highest types of gambling in the board area which is Lucas County, were lottery and sports. Not far behind was casino at 27.1 and gaming. And so when we're looking at the most popular types of gambling, we're seeing lottery, sports, casino, gaming. Those things are pretty high up there. Something interesting to note is that this survey was done in 2022 before sports betting was legalized in the state of Ohio. And it was still coming in as highly ranked as the popular type of gambling in the state of Ohio. So it will be interesting in another 5 years what the gambling survey shows us, but just something to consider. And lastly, when we're looking at level of risk and health behaviors, what these charts are pointing out is that the PG means problem gambler. And what they've found is that problem gambling is often related to a higher co-occurrence of risk factors, including a family history of gambling problems, using alcohol or drugs, gambling while intoxicated, experiencing suicidal attempts, and experiencing serious depression or serious stress. So you can see that the green blocks are the co-occurrence of those things and how much higher they are in problem gamblers as opposed to a non-gambler or a non-problem gambler. Okay, when we're looking at gambling disorder, we do want to consider other co-occurring disorders that might be along for the ride. And it's not so much a matter of what came first, the chicken or the egg. It's just accepting that there's a chicken and that there's an egg. And so it's important to know that gambling can also create anxiety, create depression, lead to substance use, be in connection with bipolar disorder or symptoms of ADHD. And problem gambling can create trauma for our individuals. On the flip side, experiencing trauma or symptoms of anxiety or depression or symptoms of substance use, bipolar, and ADHD can also lead to gambling behaviors becoming problematic for somebody. That's when we think back to gambling as a form of escape or as a coping skill. We may have some serious trauma that gambling helps us forget about for a little while. We may be struggling with substance use. And so when we try and take a break from that, we end up engaging in problem gambling behaviors, or we may use gambling as a way to cope with our symptoms of depression or anxiety. Here's another chart just to show you some data backed up by this, the prevalence of gambling in these concurrent disorders. And so in any substance use disorder, there's a 57.5% chance that someone is that you're going to be affected by gambling as well. It's very high in nicotine, alcohol, and illicit drugs. When we're looking at symptoms of mood disorders like depression or bipolar, there is some co-occurring 23.1% and 9.8%, and also with anxiety disorder and antisocial personality disorder. And the link is below here if you want to kind of learn more about these co-occurring statistics. Okay, so what can you do? If you are a counselor or a case manager or a CDCA, or really anybody working with clients or patients, what can I do? What can I look out for? Here are some red flags. Is someone having trouble paying their rent or other important bills? Do they stress about money, or do you yourself perceive them to have poor money management skills? Do they talk about gambling often? Have you seen them gamble? Have you seen them with scratch-off tickets? Have you seen them on their sports betting apps? Are you seeing it happen? Have they disclosed that a close friend or family member they might think gambles too much? And do they have a bipolar diagnosis, and do they engage in gambling only during manic episodes? And so things to look out for that should raise some red flags for you to do some further conversation with them. Now, if we go back to those numbers and we remember that even in Lucas County, the board area of 6% of the adult population meeting criteria for problem gambling, well, the flip side of that is that 94% of Lucas County would not. And so it's important to remember that most people that gamble can do so responsibly and do not end up becoming problem gamblers. But that does not mean we should be dismissing what we're seeing. We should approach it with curiosity, and we should keep the things that we know in mind about if someone is recovering from another mental health or substance use disorder, how gambling could be a red flag and could be used in a problematic way. So we don't want to make assumptions that they have a gambling problem, but we also don't want to make assumptions that everything is just fine. We want to be curious. Language matters. Gambling is considered more societally acceptable than other addictions. In fact, many people still refuse to believe that gambling can become an addiction like drinking or drugging. It's important to remember that gambling itself is not bad, but how people gamble can become bad for them. It's okay if you gamble, but mind your language when talking about gambling with clients. An example would be, you probably wouldn't talk about how drunk you got last weekend to your client who is in recovery from alcohol. Similarly, we probably wouldn't talk about how we spent all of this money at the casino and that we won big, because we don't know if our client is struggling with gambling or not. And so it's important to just kind of mind your language. What do I talk about with my clients? What do I not? What's appropriate? What's inappropriate? One suggestion is to just remain neutral about gambling. It's not good, it's not bad, it's gambling. It just is what it is, despite what your own personal beliefs are. And watch out for the red flags to consider asking some more questions. Here are some brief screens that you can do with your clients if you want to ask them more questions, or if they are curious themselves about if their gambling is responsible or not, or problematic or not. This one is a 3-question screen. It's called the brief biosocial gambling screen. And as you can see, it's 3 yes or no questions. And if your patient or client says yes to any one of them, you would want to do some further assessment. The other one is the lie bet questionnaire, which is only 2 questions. And again, it's yes or no. And if they say yes to either question, you would want to consider further assessment. So what is further assessment? Further assessment could look like a longer screen, like a South Oaks gambling screen. It is a 20-item survey based on the criteria for gambling disorder and can be self-administered or administered by the professional. In most cases, the client can fill it out themselves. It's very easy to score. It can be found just by Googling South Oaks gambling screen. You can print it off from Google, and there's a scoring sheet that's very easy to score. But the score interpretation is that if they score 5 or higher, they would likely meet criteria for gambling disorder. So if you do this longer assessment, you can see that if they score 5 or higher, you may want to consider doing even further assessment, getting them linked or referred to treatment options if they're interested. And the highest you can score is a 20. And we have seen that. It's not uncommon at all to see someone score very high on a South Oaks gambling screen if they're experiencing problem gambling in their life. So the Zepf Center, what the heck do we do? If you find a client who would qualify to get some help in the gambling treatment program, you've done some brief screens, maybe you even did a SOGS, and you're realizing, okay, this person could use some help, they're really interested in getting some help, I'm going to refer them to the gambling treatment program at Zepf Center. Well, it's important for you to know that their treatment in the gambling treatment program is free, regardless of what kind of insurance they have. Gambling treatment in the state of Ohio is covered at no cost to the client, so that they do not have the financial burden of utilizing this service. We also have in-person or telehealth options available. So if they do not have the ability to get to our location or would be more comfortable doing a telehealth appointment, we can meet those needs. We offer individual therapy and group treatment. The group treatment is only in person, but the individual can be in person or telehealth. And they don't have to have the gambling disorder diagnosis coming into the program. We can assess and complete a longer assessment to add that diagnosis to their information so that they can be treated in our program. So you don't have to worry about assessing them for the diagnosis or treating them or putting the diagnosis in there. It's just kind of linking them to treatment, and then we can take care of the rest and we can help with the rest. They can continue to engage in any other treatment, whether they're in substance use treatment or mental health treatment. They can continue those. They do not have to pick one or the other. And you can send referrals to me, Megan Poliquin. There are, on the right side here is our staff listed with our phone numbers and our emails. You can email us, call us at any time if you have questions, if you want to do a soft handoff with a client or patient, or if you just have questions yourself and want more training, don't hesitate to contact me. I would be happy to help you in any way that I can. In terms of additional resources that you can share with your clients is Gamblers Anonymous. Gamblers Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from a gambling problem. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop gambling. There are GA meetings in the city of Toledo. Those will be on the next slide. And there are also several online support group options as well. If they feel uncomfortable going to an in-person meeting, or if they'd like to just try online first, there are options for them. And they also have a screening tool themselves called the GA 20 questions, which if you go to the link in the bottom left here, the Gamblers Anonymous website, you can see their 20 questions. So here is the current GA schedule in the Toledo area. You can see that there's one meeting Monday through Friday. And that is not a lot when we look at in terms of how many maybe Alcoholics Anonymous meetings go on in the city of Toledo, but it is better than nothing. And I have worked with several people that have gone to these meetings and have really, really enjoyed their time there and have really met some good support. You'll also see that there are virtual Zoom meetings, and there are links there that you can visit. And so if someone's more comfortable trying something online, they can do that too. I'm going to show you this video on Gamban, and I will tell you a little bit more about it after the video.
If you've ever found yourself chasing a loss, or spending more time and money than you can afford on gambling, then you might have a gambling problem. In a world full of temptation, it can be difficult to maintain control. And fighting addiction can be really tough for you and your loved ones. Gamban can remove temptation by blocking your devices from accessing gambling websites and apps, wherever you are in the world. Easy to install and non-intrusive, Gamban is a helpful tool for tackling gambling addiction. Gamban can help you get back on your feet and give you the time you need to enjoy the more important things in life.
Okay, so Gamban is something that you can download on any of your devices to block gambling websites or gambling apps from working. And so if you gamble on your phone or on the computer, this is a really great resource if you're trying to stop gambling, to install on your computer so that those websites and apps won't work. And so if you want more information, you can go to the link below here, timeoutohio.com/Gamban, to learn a little bit more about that. And Ohio also has a casino exclusion program, which is called Timeout Ohio Voluntary Program. This program offers individuals the ability to ban themselves from Ohio's casinos, Ohio racinos, and Ohio sports gaming for 1 year, 5 years, or a lifetime. Once the request is validated, you are not permitted access to any Ohio casino, racino properties, and to participate in Ohio sports gaming during the length of the self-imposed ban. And so this is something that you can do if you are gambling at casinos and you want to try and stop yourself from going. You can voluntarily exclude yourself. And so there is more information as well at timeoutohio.com at the link below. Again, just another resource that it's important for people to know about, that there is help and there are things we can do to minimize those barriers to getting help. Here is some more information about the exclusion program. You must enroll voluntarily, and you can do it online. And so there's no barrier to having to go to the casino and do it. You can do it online. You cannot be under the influence of any substance at the time that you voluntarily enroll. And I believe, yep, they will make reasonable attempts to stop all direct marketing effort to you as well. So if you are working with a patient or client that is a casino gambler and wanting to stop and get help with that, part of this exclusion program also is to slow down and stop all of the mail that we get about our free play or the promotions at the casino or this or that, anything that would normally tempt someone to go back to the casino. Here is a list of some local resources, the Ohio Problem Gambling Hotline that the videos I showed you were connected to, of course, Zepf Crisis Care, and the Zepf Center Prevention YouTube has a lot of good videos about gambling and gambling-related harm. Ohio also has a network called the Problem Gambling Network of Ohio. That website is really great to look at if you're interested in learning more about applying gambling disorder to your scope of practice. If you want additional trainings with CEUs connected to that, that's a great resource for you. And so these are things for you to look at. And please follow up with me if you have any questions about them. And one additional resource, podcasts. I feel like podcasts have gotten a little bit more popular over the last several years, and they have also gotten popular in the world of gambling recovery. This is not an all-inclusive list because I'm sure I didn't get them all, but this is a list of a lot of podcasts that are all centered around gambling recovery. And many of them are hosted by individuals in gambling recovery themselves. And so if you like podcasts or your client likes podcasts, they may benefit from listening to one of these, especially if they're wanting to get some information and education, but they're not ready to start formal treatment or to go to a support group. If they are just kind of looking to get some more info, this is a really safe way for someone to do that. Okay, so that was Gambling Disorder Bootcamp. I wanted to give you enough information to get you started. If you come across a client or patient that may be struggling with their gambling behaviors. And of course, my contact information is here below. Please reach out if you do have any questions in the future on how I can help you or support you in any way. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a great day.